What started as a wave of speculation around Blueface and Chrysian rock quickly transformed into something far more calculated in the eyes of the public. If the circulating claims and leaked fragments hold any truth, then this is no longer just emotional fallout or relationship drama. It begins to resemble strategy, a carefully controlled narrative unfolding in public, while the real decisions, the real conversations, and the real tensions remain hidden behind closed doors. That shift in perception changes everything. Every post, every deletion, every emotional outburst that once felt impulsive now appears deliberate. What looked like chaos begins to feel structured. What seemed reactive now feels intentional. And in the world of digital culture, that distinction is powerful. Right after a particularly viral screenshot made its rounds online, Blueface did something that caught everyone off guard. He went completely silent. No posts, no live streams, no reactions. For someone known for immediate, often explosive responses, this silence felt unnatural. It wasn't just noticeable, it was alarming. Because when someone who thrives on visibility suddenly disappears at the peak of attention, it rarely signals calm. It signals control, awareness, or a shift in strategy. At nearly the same time, Chrysian rock mirrored that silence. No clarifications, no subtle hints, no indirect responses, just absence. Two central figures in a global conversation, both choosing not to speak. That kind of synchronized silence doesn't feel accidental. It feels like pressure building beneath the surface. And pressure at that level doesn't simply fade. It builds, intensifies, and eventually demands release. As speculation reached its peak, new rumors began circulating. Something bigger was coming. Not just another post or reaction, but a major reveal, something that could reshape the entire narrative. Some claimed it would be a never-before-seen video. Others suggested an audio clip or a carefully timed statement designed for maximum impact. No one could confirm anything, but the anticipation alone was enough to keep the internet locked in. Because at that point, the story no longer felt complete. Everything that had happened, the leaks, the deleted posts, the live stream moments, started to feel like setup, like pieces of a puzzle that hadn't fully come together yet. And the biggest question became unavoidable. What happens when the missing piece finally drops? If what we've already seen created this level of division and intensity, then a full reveal could completely reshape public perception. It could reframe past moments, shift loyalties, and force people to reinterpret everything they thought they understood. That possibility is what keeps the audience engaged, not certainty, but anticipation. And so people wait. They refresh timelines. They analyze every hint, every pause, every unexplained move. Beneath all the speculation is a shared understanding. This isn't finished. Something is still coming. And when it does, it won't just add to the story, it could redefine it entirely. That same pattern of speculation, silence, and shifting perception also appeared in a separate but equally intense situation involving NLE Choppa and NBA YoungBoy. What initially looked like a routine creative decision, the replacement of one artist with another on a track, quickly spiraled into a broader conversation about respect, communication, and industry power dynamics. At first glance, replacing a feature might seem like a standard part of the music-making process. Songs evolve, lineups change, creative direction shifts, but timing matters. And according to widely circulated, though unverified, reports, the decision to remove Choppa came very late in the process, when the track was nearly complete. That timing transformed the narrative from a simple adjustment into something that felt abrupt and potentially disrespectful. What made it more complicated was how the information allegedly reached Choppa. Instead of a direct conversation, rumors suggest he may have learned about the change indirectly. In an industry where relationships and reputation carry significant weight, that kind of communication breakdown can feel like a personal slight, not just a professional decision. Soon after, subtle signs began appearing online. Cryptic posts, vague captions, short-lived stories that hinted at frustration without directly naming anyone. Fans immediately took notice. Every word, every emoji, every tone shift was dissected and analyzed. One post, widely circulated but never confirmed, seemed to suggest feelings of being overlooked. Another hinted at loyalty not being reciprocated. Suddenly, the focus shifted. This wasn't just about a song anymore. It became a conversation about trust, respect, and how artists are treated behind the scenes. Meanwhile, the inclusion of NBA YoungBoy brought its own wave of attention. His presence added commercial weight, strong streaming numbers, a massive fan base, and undeniable influence. From a business perspective, the move made sense, but from a relational perspective, it introduced tension. Fans quickly divided into opposing camps. One side viewed the decision as strategic, a move designed to maximize reach and success. The other saw it as unfair, arguing that Choppa's contribution should have been respected, especially if it had already been recorded and integrated into the track. The debate escalated rapidly. Social media platforms became battlegrounds. Threads multiplied. Clips were shared and reshared. People compared snippets, analyzed timelines, and constructed detailed theories about what might have happened behind the scenes. Insider claims added even more complexity. Some suggested the decision wasn't purely about numbers, but also about creative direction or branding alignment. Others hinted at possible interpersonal tension that may have influenced the final call. None of these claims were confirmed, but in the absence of official statements, speculation filled the void. Then came another twist. Reports began circulating that multiple versions of the track may have existed internally, each featuring different artists. If true, that would shift the narrative again, from a last-minute removal to a broader creative testing process. In that context, Choppa's version may have been one of several options considered before the final selection was made. But even that explanation didn't fully resolve the tension, because perception had already taken hold. And in digital culture, perception often matters more than intent. The silence from all parties involved only intensified the situation. No official clarification, no direct statements, just ongoing speculation. And that silence, much like in the Blueface and Chrysian situation, became part of the story itself. Fans weren't just reacting anymore. They were constructing the narrative. Every detail, every absence, every subtle signal became part of a larger interpretation. And as the story grew, it became less about what actually happened and more about what people believed happened. At its core, this situation highlights a key truth about the modern music industry. Collaborations are never just about music. They are shaped by relationships, communication, business strategy, and public perception. A single decision, especially one made late in the process, can ripple outward, creating narratives that extend far beyond the track itself. For NLE Choppa, the situation, as described by circulating reports, touched on issues of respect and recognition. For NBA YoungBoy, stepping into the feature brought both opportunity and scrutiny. And for the lead artist, the decision, whatever its reasoning, placed them at the center of a rapidly expanding narrative. In both cases, the personal drama and the professional shift, the pattern is strikingly similar. Silence fuels speculation. Ambiguity creates engagement. And the audience, armed with fragments of information, builds a story that continues to evolve in real time. And that's where things stand now, unresolved, ongoing, still developing. Because in today's digital landscape, stories like these don't end quickly. They stretch, expand, and transform. Every new post, every resurfaced clip, every rumor adds another layer. The truth may eventually surface, or it may remain partially hidden, leaving only interpretations behind. But one thing is certain: what started as isolated moments, whether in a relationship or a recording studio, has grown into something much larger, a reflection of how influence, perception, and narrative collide in real time. And until clarity arrives, if it ever does, The world will keep watching, analyzing, and waiting for whatever comes next. As information surfaced in fragments, the hip-hop community quickly split into opposing camps. What initially looked like a routine creative adjustment, a feature swap involving NLE Choppa and NBA YoungBoy, evolved into a highly charged debate about loyalty, respect, and power in the music industry. With no official statements from the artists involved, speculation filled the silence. And in that silence, assumptions hardened into facts, shaping public perception in real time. A viral thread set the tone early, claiming that nothing about the situation was accidental. According to this theory, feature changes like this are rarely just creative choices. They reflect shifting leverage, label priorities, and behind-the-scenes negotiations. While completely unverified, the post spread rapidly, intensifying the discourse and pushing fans to analyze the situation as something far more strategic than artistic. The conversation shifted away from music and into the mechanics of influence itself. As debate spread, fan reactions became increasingly polarized. Supporters of NLE Choppa argued that removing him without clear communication was a sign of disrespect. For them, the issue wasn't just the feature, it was the process. They emphasized his consistency, his growing influence, and his loyal fanbase, arguing that an artist of his stature deserved transparency and professional courtesy. In their view, failing to communicate directly undermined not just Choppa's contribution, but his reputation. On the opposite side, NBA YoungBoy supporters pushed a very different narrative. They viewed his inclusion as a strategic upgrade that strengthened the track's commercial potential. Citing his massive streaming numbers, chart dominance, and cultural reach, they argued that the decision was purely business-driven. To them, the switch wasn't disrespectful, it was smart industry positioning. The song, they claimed, benefited from added visibility, broader audience appeal, and increased momentum. This disagreement quickly escalated beyond a simple music debate. It became a public comparison between two major artists and, more broadly, two different philosophies within hip-hop. One side represented loyalty and creative recognition. The other represented commercial strategy and market expansion. Every post, comment, and reaction became part of a growing cultural argument about what matters more in modern music, respect or results. Attention soon turned to Choppa's perceived response. Although he never made a direct statement, fans began interpreting his online activity as indirect communication. Subtle likes, reposts, timing of posts, and brief moments of silence were all analyzed as hidden signals of frustration. Even the absence of activity became meaningful. In the digital age, silence is rarely seen as neutral. It is often interpreted as intentional. As speculation deepened, the situation expanded beyond a single track. It became a broader discussion about how artists handle collaboration, conflict, and communication. Fans debated what professional respect should look like in an industry where decisions can change quickly and often without explanation. Some argued that transparency should be standard practice, while others insisted that creative control and business flexibility naturally come first. Further complexity was added when rumors emerged suggesting that multiple versions of the track had been tested internally before the final decision was made. This reframed the situation for some observers, suggesting that Choppa's removal might not have been personal at all, but part of a normal creative refinement process. In this interpretation, the decision reflected experimentation rather than rejection. However, even with that possibility, public discussion did not slow down. If anything, it intensified. Social media platforms became arenas of interpretation, where every detail was dissected and reinterpreted. Fan pages compiled timelines, compared snippets, and analyzed every known interaction between the artists involved. The lack of clarity allowed multiple competing narratives to coexist, each reinforced by selective evidence and emotional bias. Industry observers pointed out that feature swaps are not unusual in music production. Songs often evolve through several iterations before release, with verses added, removed, or replaced based on creative direction or marketing strategy. In most cases, these changes remain invisible to the public. But when communication breaks down or leaks occur, routine decisions can quickly transform into viral controversies. That appeared to be exactly what happened here. The absence of official clarification from NLE Choppa, NBA YoungBoy, or the lead artist created a vacuum that the internet rushed to fill. And once the vacuum was filled with speculation, it became self-sustaining. Every new post, reaction, or rumor added fuel to the fire, keeping the story alive far longer than the original decision itself. As the narrative evolved, it stopped being just about a song. It became a case study in how modern music culture operates. Fans weren't just listening, they were investigating. Content creators broke down every angle, from tone analysis to past collaborations. Comment sections turned into debate forums. The story became less about music and more about perceived power, fairness, and influence. Choppa's supporters remained vocal, insisting that being removed without direct communication was disrespectful and professionally damaging. They argued that regardless of business considerations, artists deserve acknowledgement when major changes affect their work. Many pointed out that in an industry built on relationships, how decisions are communicated can matter just as much as the decisions themselves. Meanwhile, YoungBoy's supporters continued to emphasize his commercial dominance. For them, his inclusion validated the decision. They highlighted his ability to elevate tracks, drive streams, and expand audience reach. In their view, the switch represented evolution, not disrespect, a calculated move designed to maximize success in a highly competitive industry. As both sides strengthened their arguments, the situation turned into a full-scale cultural comparison. It was no longer just about two artists, it was about how success is defined in modern hip-hop. Is it loyalty and recognition, or reach and impact? Is it artistic consistency, or strategic growth? Adding to the complexity was Choppa's perceived online behavior following the incident. Fans interpreted subtle activity as indirect commentary. Cryptic posts, timing of interactions, and brief silences were all analyzed for meaning. Whether intentional or not, every digital move was treated as part of the narrative. In this environment, even silence became a form of expression. Over time, the debate expanded further into broader industry criticism. Some commentators argued that situations like this highlight a deeper issue in modern music, the lack of transparency in creative decisions. Others countered that music is ultimately a business, and business decisions are not always required to be publicly explained. This tension between artistry and commerce became the central theme of the discussion. Even insiders weighed in cautiously, suggesting that while feature changes are common, the public reaction is often determined by communication, or the lack of it. When artists or teams fail to address changes directly, speculation naturally fills the gap. And once speculation takes over, controlling the narrative becomes nearly impossible. In this case, that proved true. The story grew far beyond its original scope. Memes, reaction videos, analysis threads, and fan theories transformed a behind-the-scenes decision into a cultural moment. The lack of clarity became the story itself. Later claims suggested that internal versions of the track had been tested with different features before the final selection was locked in. This added nuance, implying that Choppa's removal may not have been personal, but part of a broader creative testing process. Some even suggested scheduling conflicts or label strategies played a role. However, none of these details were confirmed, leaving room for continued interpretation. As a result, the narrative remained unstable, constantly shifting depending on which version of events people chose to believe. For some, it was a betrayal. For others, it was a smart business move. For many, it was both at once. Ultimately, the situation highlighted how fragile modern music narratives have become. A single change in a track listing can spiral into a global debate when amplified by social media, fan culture, and algorithm-driven attention. Every post becomes evidence, every silence becomes meaning, and every decision becomes symbolic. For NLE Choppa, NBA YoungBoy, and the lead artist, the incident became more than just a production choice. It became a public lesson in perception, communication, and influence. And even now, without a definitive explanation, the conversation continues to evolve. Because in today's digital music culture, nothing truly ends. It only transforms into another layer of the story. YoungBoy's fanbase responded almost immediately, matching the intensity of the growing debate with equal force. Across social media platforms, supporters highlighted his undeniable impact on modern hip-hop, emphasizing his massive streaming numbers, consistent chart performance, and deeply loyal audience base. For them, his inclusion on the track was not only justified but strategically superior. They argued that his presence brought a stronger commercial edge, elevating the song's reach and ensuring greater visibility across streaming platforms and playlists. In their eyes, the final version of the track was an improvement in both creative and strategic terms. YoungBoy's signature energy, vocal style, and cultural relevance were seen as assets that amplified the song's potential. Supporters insisted that the decision reflected industry logic rather than personal conflict. To them, this was simply how modern music works: fast-moving, data-driven, and constantly optimized for audience engagement. But what truly intensified the situation was the direct, unavoidable comparison between the two artists. Fans did not merely discuss the track in isolation. Instead, they began constructing a head-to-head narrative. Who carried more influence? Who had a stronger fan base? Who deserved the feature slot more? And perhaps most controversially, who had been overlooked or unfairly removed? These questions spread rapidly across comment sections, turning casual discussion into heated debate. Every platform became a battleground of opinions. Supporters of each artist defended their position with increasing intensity, often responding not just with arguments but with emotional investment. What might have been a simple production decision had now transformed into a public referendum on artistic value and industry status. The conversations were no longer limited to music critique. They evolved into discussions about respect, hierarchy, and influence. Some fans insisted that Choppa had been disrespected, while others maintained that YoungBoy's addition was simply the result of evolving creative direction. The arguments escalated quickly, occasionally crossing into hostility, as both sides attempted to defend their preferred narrative. What this situation ultimately revealed was a deeper truth about modern hip-hop culture. Perception often holds as much weight as reality. In today's digital ecosystem, fans are not passive consumers. They are active participants in shaping the narrative around music, artists, and industry decisions. A song is no longer just a piece of art once released. It becomes a living conversation shaped by millions of interpretations. Social media threads transformed into informal investigative spaces. Users began piecing together timelines, analyzing screenshots, revisiting old posts, and interpreting subtle signals from the artists involved. Every detail, no matter how minor, became potential evidence. A deleted post, a change in caption, a delayed announcement, or even silence itself was treated as meaningful data. This collective analysis created a feedback loop. The more people speculated, the more content was produced around the speculation. And the more content that emerged, the more the narrative expanded beyond its original scope. What began as a feature change turned into a layered cultural discussion about fairness, loyalty, communication, and power dynamics in the music industry. At its core, the incident underscores how fragile the balance is between creative decisions and interpersonal relationships in modern music. A single adjustment, such as swapping a featured artist, can appear routine on the surface. Yet when handled without clear communication or public context, it can escalate into a full-blown controversy. In the digital age, where information spreads instantly and interpretations multiply rapidly, even small misunderstandings can grow exponentially. Respect, transparency, and timing all play critical roles in how such decisions are perceived. Without them, speculation fills the void, often in ways that reshape the entire narrative. The situation also highlights the increasingly complex intersection between artistry and commerce. Feature decisions are no longer purely creative choices. They are strategic decisions influenced by data, streaming performance, audience demographics, and commercial projections. From a business perspective, every feature carries measurable value. Artists with larger audiences can significantly impact streaming numbers, playlist placements, and chart performance. In this context, NBA YoungBoy's inclusion can be understood as a strategic move designed to maximize exposure and optimize commercial success. However, this business-driven logic does not always align neatly with artistic expectations or personal relationships. While industry professionals may view such decisions as routine, artists and fans often interpret them through emotional and relational lenses. This disconnect is one of the key reasons situations like this escalate so quickly online. YoungBoy's supporters leaned heavily into this commercial framing. They emphasized his consistency as a hitmaker, his ability to dominate streaming platforms, and his strong cultural presence. For them, the decision was straightforward. The track benefited from his involvement, both creatively and financially. On the other side, Choppa's supporters framed the situation differently. They argued that artistic contribution and loyalty should not be overlooked in favor of commercial gain. To them, removing an artist without transparent communication felt disrespectful, regardless of business justification. They stressed that professionalism in the industry requires not only strategic decisions, but also human consideration. This division created a sharp ideological split. The debate was no longer just about two artists. It had become a broader reflection of how success should be defined in modern hip-hop. Is success measured by numbers and reach, or by respect and creative integrity? The answer depended entirely on which side of the discussion one aligned with. As the conversation intensified, attention also shifted toward Choppa's perceived response. Although he never publicly addressed the situation in detail, fans began analyzing his online behavior for indirect meaning. Subtle activity, such as brief posts, timing of engagement, or even silence, was interpreted as possible commentary on the situation. In digital culture, absence is rarely neutral. When public figures remain silent, audiences often fill the gap with interpretation. In this case, Choppa's lack of direct response only fueled further speculation. Some believed it indicated frustration or disappointment, while others saw it as a deliberate attempt to avoid unnecessary escalation. Meanwhile, NBA YoungBoy's role in the situation remained largely focused on the music itself. His fanbase continued to emphasize that his contribution elevated the track's appeal. Yet even his involvement became part of a larger narrative he did not directly control. Every success associated with the track added fuel to comparisons, whether intended or not. As commentary spread, content creators and analysts entered the discussion. Reaction videos, breakdowns, and opinion threads multiplied across platforms. Some framed the situation as a standard example of industry decision-making. Others treated it as evidence of deeper tension and behind-the-scenes complexity. This divergence in interpretation only strengthened the story's longevity. In the absence of confirmed details, multiple narratives were allowed to coexist. Each audience constructed its own version of events based on belief, bias, and available fragments of information. Inside the industry itself, reactions were more measured but still insightful. Many professionals acknowledge that feature swaps are not uncommon and often occur during late stages of production. Tracks evolve continuously, and decisions are frequently made based on shifting priorities, marketing considerations, or creative refinements. However, industry observers also pointed out a crucial factor: communication determines perception. Even routine changes can become controversial if not communicated properly to all parties involved. When communication breaks down, misunderstandings fill the gap, and in today's social media-driven environment, those misunderstandings spread rapidly. In this case, the absence of clear communication from the involved parties played a significant role in shaping the narrative. Without official clarification, fans and commentators were left to interpret the situation independently. And once interpretations take hold online, they often become more influential than factual explanations. As days passed, the story continued to evolve. What began as a niche industry discussion transformed into a widespread cultural debate. Memes, analysis threads, reaction clips, and fan theories ensured that the topic remained active across platforms. The conversation expanded far beyond the music itself, touching on broader themes of loyalty, power, and creative control. Over time, additional unverified claims emerged, further complicating the narrative. Some suggested that multiple versions of the track had been tested internally, with different features being considered before final approval. Others speculated about scheduling conflicts or label-level strategic decisions that influenced the final lineup. These possibilities added nuance to the discussion. If true, they suggested that Choppa's removal was not necessarily personal, but part of a broader creative evaluation process. In that context, the decision would be less about rejection and more about refinement, a standard part of music production at a high level. Yet even with these explanations circulating, public debate did not diminish. Instead, it evolved. Fans began focusing less on what actually happened and more on what it meant. The story became symbolic rather than factual, representing larger issues within the music industry. Questions about fairness, transparency, and respect continued to dominate discussion. Some argued that artists deserve full communication regarding decisions that affect their work. Others maintained that the fast-paced nature of the industry makes constant transparency unrealistic. This tension between expectation and practicality became one of the central themes of the entire situation. It highlighted the gap between how fans perceive the industry and how it actually operates behind the scenes. For NLE Choppa, the situation was interpreted by supporters as a moment of professional disrespect. For NBA YoungBoy, it became an example of strategic positioning and commercial strength. For the lead artist, it placed every decision under increased scrutiny. In the end, the situation became more than just a track swap. It became a lens through which audiences examine how modern hip-hop functions, where creativity, business strategy, fan perception, and digital amplification all intersect. And even now, the conversation shows no signs of fully fading. Because in today's music ecosystem, stories like this rarely end cleanly. They evolve, they expand, and sometimes they define how audiences remember the artists involved far more than the music itself ever could.